Hi everyone, it's Gina K and welcome back to another video. Today's video is part 2 of my holiday Stamp-n-Stencil series. Today I will be using the Wishing You Joy collection to make this sparkling holiday card. This collection consists of a large 6x8 stamp set that has many different 2- and 3-step combinations. You can create lots of different looks with the stamp set by stamping in more than one color or stamping and embossing with embossing powder. The set also has some fun large holiday greetings. This collection also has a complete die set so you can cut out all of the images, and I highly recommend adding the dies to your collection because there are so many fun techniques that you can do. I'll link to yesterday's video at the end so you can see the inlaid die cutting technique, which would work great with this collection as well. And then there is the magic stencil that allows you to create three-dimensional looks by adding paste, glitter gel, or transfer gel with foil as a second or third layer. You can do a combination of ink blending and glitz glitter gel, transfer gel, Thermoweb's metallic paste, or our new pastillage texture paste to create some really fun texture. There's so many great 2- and 3-step options to create interest on your card projects. And then there's the large background that will create a beautiful snowflake pattern. So the stencil is a must-have for all kinds of holiday cards, tags, scrapbook pages, and so much more. So for today's project, I am going to make an ornament card, and I'm going to start with the large ornament stamp. Now I have a piece of white cardstock in my MISTI, and I'm going to start with some red velvet ink. I'm going to do a fun inking technique here using red velvet and then some faded brick. I'm just going to rub that faded brick, just kind of pounce it around the outside of the ornament, and then when I press that down on the paper, it's going to look shaded. There's a little bit of a darker edge there, and then it gets lighter as it goes toward the center. Then I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to stamp it again because I'm going to be making 3 ornaments. I like to always clean my stamp when I'm doing a double inking like that so I don't get any of the darker ink on my lighter red. So I'm stamping the red velvet and then pouncing around the outside with the faded brick, and then once again I'm going to stamp that onto my paper. So now I have 2 of the red ornaments. Next, I'm going to use the fancy kind of swirly stripe ornament. That could be stamped on top of the one that I already stamped, or it can be a standalone ornament. I'm going to make it a standalone ornament because I'm going to add some stenciling on top of it. So I'm going to ink that up the same way. I'm going to be using some of the red velvet ink again. And I'm going to be using a little bit of that faded brick around the outside. So I'm just going to add it to a little bit around the edge, just like I did with the solid one. And it'll give that same sort of look. I really like the way this one looks with the white kind of going in between it. So my next step is going to be to die cut these, and I want to die cut them before I put the little top onto the ornament. It's a lot easier to know where to stamp that top once it's cut, so I recommend if you're going to be using the top for these, cut it out first. So I'm cutting these out using my Spellbinders die cutting machine, and I'm going to cut all 3 of them. And you can see that leaves a little space up top for me to stamp the ornament topper. So it's easy to cut these out, and the good thing about these ornaments is there's no up or down. They are the same in both directions. And that allows you to make ornaments that the swirls go in the opposite direction so you can have even more assorted ornaments when you stamp them. So there I have my second ornament, and now I'm going to cut out my final one, and then it's going to be time to add the topper on top. So I'm just going to position that, place my plate on top, and cut. So now that I have all the ornaments cut out, I am going to cut out one oval using the Thermoweb and Gina K Designs double-stitched ovals. These are the small ovals, and I'm going to use this for my greeting panel. So I'm going to cut that out beforehand, and then I'm going to stamp it after. So my next step is going to be to add a little texture to the piece of cardstock that's going to be my focal image panel. So I decided to use the Swiss Dot Cuttlebug folder for that, and now I'm ready to do some more stamping. So I used a little piece of the cutaway part to create a template, and then I positioned the ornament topper in place, and now I can stamp these quickly and easily by just slipping that template back in the corner and then dropping the next ornament in, and the topper is always going to be in the right spot. This is also a great way to do a double stamping technique that I'm going to show you in a little bit. So I'm going to stamp all 3 of these tops, but I'm not going to take the topper off the door of the MISTI. I'm just going to clean it and put it aside for now. So you can see I'm just going to clean it with my tidy towel, and then that whole thing's going to get put away. Now I'm going to put a little bit of the adhesive dot runner on the back of each of these ornaments and tack them down onto a piece of cardstock. This makes it very easy to use stencils with pixie spray because you don't have to worry when you pull up on the stencil that the whole piece is going to come with it. It'll stay attached to the paper below. And I also like to cut my images out prior to using the stencil. So you can see I'm using a little purple tape to just cover the topper. This way I'm only going to get whatever kind of texture paste, glitz glitter gel, or Decofoil transfer gel where I want it. It's not going to go up onto the topper. So I'm going to tack that down with a little extra purple tape just to make sure it stays in place. Then I'm going to use some Decofoil transfer gel. And I'm using the transfer gel today because I want to foil all of my ornaments. In my last video, I used the glitz glitter gel, and you saw how pretty the glitz was. You can use either glitz or you can use Decofoil transfer gel. And if you use the transfer gel, you can use quite a few different items with this. You can either just let it dry clear, and then you'll have some shiny stripes in there, or you can let it dry and use a laminator with foil and add foil to it, or you can use the laminator with the Decofoil flock and add flock to the ornaments too. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with the Decofoil transfer gel. So I'm going to clean that with a baby wipe because I'm going to use it on my next ornament. And for the next ornament, you can see I'm going in the opposite direction now. I just flipped the stencil upside down and I'm tacking it down. And now these swirly stripes are going to go the opposite way. I am going to take this piece of purple tape off, and I'm going to actually pull up that stencil and add it to my topper to make sure that my topper is protected once again. And now again, I'm going to lay the stencil down, and it's going in the opposite direction of the last ornament. That's just going to give the card a little bit of an interesting look because the ornaments are going to appear to be different. And I'm going to tack that down with some purple tape, and then once again, I'm going to be using the Decofoil transfer gel. Transfer gel is a really neat texture. It feels like you're spreading mayonnaise onto a piece of bread. It's super thin and light and very, very easy to work with. You only need a thin layer for it to work. I'm pulling that stencil straight up so I don't smear any of that gel. And then again, I'm going to clean the stencil using a baby wipe. Now once I do that, I'm going to take that purple tape off of that ornament so that I can let that dry and there's no Decofoil transfer gel on my ornament topper. So that's just a little masking technique. Now I'm going to use it one more time on this ornament, but this time I am going to use the little dotted lines, the dotted swirly lines on this ornament. So I'm going to position them where I want them, and then I'm going to tack them down, tack the stencil down again with some of that purple tape. And then I'm going to use the Decofoil transfer gel one more time. I only need a tiny bit for these tiny dots, and I'm just going to thinly coat that and then use the back of my palette knife to scrape away all the excess. So you really don't need very much at all. Your Decofoil transfer gel and all of the Decofoil and Gina K Designs gels and pastes last a very long time. So now I've allowed these ornaments to dry. With Decofoil transfer gel, you'll know they're dry because it goes on white but it dries clear. I'm going to use some glimmering gold foil, so I'm just cutting enough that's going to cover that ornament. I'm going to cut 2 pieces because 2 of my designs are going to be glimmering gold. And then my final design is going to be in the radiant red, which is that sparkly, glittery red foil. And I keep all my foil in these convenient stamp pockets. I like to pre-cut it and have it ready to go. And then I'm going to cut a piece big enough for that ornament. And now these are ready to go into my parchment folder. I just took a piece of parchment paper and folded it in half, and then I put an extra piece of cardstock in there to act as a shim to make it a little bit tighter as it goes through the laminator, and then I'm placing that foil on top. Now when you put it through the laminator, you want to make sure you put it in folded side first so that the ends don't get caught up in those rollers. I'm using the Royal Sovereign laminator, and when you're using this laminator, you do want to let it heat up for about 20 minutes, and then it's ready to go. And now it's peel and reveal time, and you can see how fun these little dots are now, all gold and glittery. And then this one with the gold swirls, and then this final one with the radiant red glitter. Oh, I just love those. Those are so pretty. So now I'm going to stick those ornaments back into my little template I made, and this time I'm going to ink them up with some embossing and watermark ink. So I still have my topper in the same exact spot. I'm going to use some embossing and watermark ink, and I'm going to go back over that same spot, and this time I'm going to dip the little ornament top into some clear embossing powder. This is going to make the top of my ornament nice and shiny to kind of match the rest of the ornament. So when you're using a heat tool over foil, you want to protect the foil. So I'm just taking a piece of cardstock and just covering the foil, and then I'm heating up my heat gun a little bit off to the side, and once it's nice and hot, then I'm just going to hit the ornament topper with the heat, and it's going to immediately emboss. The reason you want to make sure that you protect your foil is because if you heat it up a second time after it's come out of the laminator, it kind of dulls the shine. So just protect it with a little piece of cardstock and you'll have no problem. So I'm going to do this to each one of my ornaments. And you can see I'm not even going through all the trouble of sprinkling the embossing powder onto scrap paper. I'm just dipping it right in there and just shaking off the excess, covering up the foil, and then heat embossing it with my Wagner heat tool. And once that heat tool is nice and hot, this goes really fast. And you can see it's just a second and it's all heated up. This is also a great way, this double stamping technique is a great way to do any of your images that you want to do in black. You won't get little black specks anywhere because you're using clear embossing powder. So I'm going to do that here and show you what I mean. So I'm putting that oval, I just tacked it down onto my MISTI using a little bit of adhesive dot runner. And then I'm going to stamp it with some of the Gina K Designs Black Onyx ink. And you can see I stamped it off center because I'm going to cut the edge of that in just a minute. Now I'm going to clean that stamp while it's still on the MISTI, and I'm not going to move it. And then once again, I'm going to get my watermark and embossing ink, and I'm going to ink it up a second time using the watermark and embossing ink. I'm going to use my embossing magic pad just to make sure that there's nothing wet or damp or sticky on there. And then I'm going to stamp it a second time in that watermark ink, embossing ink. And then this time I am going to need a piece of cardstock because I have a bigger surface that won't fit inside the embossing powder. So I'm going to sprinkle that on top, and just brush away the excess. And now you can see it looks a little bit gray, but as I emboss it, it gets all nice and shiny. And you can see that shine, so it almost looks like it's black embossing powder, but there's no mess at all. It's a great way to have all kinds of colors in embossing powder just by stamping them in colored ink and then going over it in clear. Now I've attached that hanging off the edge of my piece of cardstock, and then I'm just going to trim the excess off, and then I have that kind of half oval coming in with Happy Holidays on it. Now it's time to assemble my card. So these cool little things are peel-offs, and they're from a company called Love from Lizzie, and I just love this company, and I love their little peel-offs. The peel-offs are perfect for adding a little shimmery border. They also have plain colors that are just a little bit shiny, and it prevents you from having to use a whole piece of cardstock, and it creates the illusion that you've got glitter cardstock under there. So you can I'll link Love from Lizzie in this video too, because they've got a great company. They're over in the UK, and she's got some really fun peel-off options. So now I'm going to adhere this onto my card front. So this panel is going to get adhered onto my note card. And then it's time for me to lay out these ornaments. So I'm going to start with the striped ornament, and I'm going to lay that out. I'm just kind of going to look at where it's going to be first, and then I'm going to tape it down. And you could pop these up if you want with foam squares, but for this one I decided to tape them right onto the card. Then I'm going to put the red one up near the top, and the gold one kind of a little bit down, but not quite as far down as that red and white one. So I want to make sure that I tape that real well, and then I'm going to adhere that a little bit overlapping on the first one, closer to the top. Now I'm going to adhere my final ornament, and I'm doing that again with the Gina K Designs Adhesive Dot Runner. And then I'm going to place that overlapping just a little bit onto the red with the red stripes. Now once those ornaments are in place, I'm going to add ornament strings. And I'm going to use that same peel-off pack, the Love from Lizzie peel-off pack. She's got all different thicknesses on these, so I'm going to use a super thin one that's, you couldn't even cut cardstock this thin if you tried. These are so cool. So I am going to just press it down onto the ornament topper, find the right position just in the center there, and then I'm going to pull it and press it down. And then I'm going to do that with the next one, and you can see I just snip off the edge, and then I'm going to do the final one. And that's a really fun way to hang these ornaments onto your card. Of course, you can also use ribbon, you can use twine, you can use thin cut pieces of cardstock or very thin washi tape to get the same effect. So there is my finished card project. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you'll give this technique a try. Both the Autumn Wishes and Wishing You Joy Stamp-n-Stencil collections, along with the limited edition Pumpkin Spice and Holiday Pine Glitz Glitter Gel, are now available at Gina K Designs, thermoweb.com, and fine retailers near you. I've linked a couple of videos for you here, including yesterday's Autumn Wishes inlaid die cutting technique. And I hope you'll hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss another video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.